This story is called I Gotta Go. And a little backstory. I'm the type of teacher that strives structure and organization. Classroom management is essential. Without classroom management, without effective classroom management, maximum learning cannot take place for our students. One of my favorite quotes is, if they're not listening, they being the students, if they're not listening, it doesn't matter what you're saying. You could spend 5 hours crafting the greatest lesson known to man. But if your students are not paying attention, if they're goofing off in the back row, doesn't matter how good your lesson is. Am I right? So I remember back in my credential program and my student teaching, it was, I'm going to be a teacher that has structure and organization and good classroom management. Now don't get me wrong. We had a great time in my classroom. One of my top priorities was I wanted my kids to love coming to school and to love learning, and we did that. We had a lot of fun in my classroom, but I always strove to do that within the confines of the structure and that classroom management. So fast forward, or rewind I should say, to my first year of teaching, a couple months into my first year of teaching. In my first classroom, I had one computer in the classroom. It was a Macintosh LC, like the picture that you see there on your screen there. And I had that in the back of my classroom, and every day after lunch, my students did silent reading. And during silent reading, I would have a rotation system where one of my students could go back to that classroom and work on some educational games. This was before the internet really took off. So I remember on this particular day, I was up in the front of the classroom prepping for the next lesson of the day. And I had a student, she was back on the computer in the back of the room working, and I was prepping in the front, and the next thing I know, that student who was working on the computer came up to the front of the class, and very quietly I saw her and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And she looked at me and very quietly she said, "Mr. Coley, I peed my pants." And I went, "Oh no." And I asked her, I said, "Why didn't you ask me to go to the bathroom?" And she looked me straight in the eyes. And in all honesty, she said, "I thought you'd say no." Yeah, I felt about this big at that point, as if the dagger had been thrust into my heart. And I realized right then and there, oh my goodness, I'm not approachable. In my quest for structure and organization and quality classroom management, I have a 4th grade student. A 4th grade student who didn't feel like she could ask me to go to the bathroom, to the point that she wet herself. And the lesson that I learned from that experience, and I am so thankful that I learned it only a couple months into my career, the lesson was, make sure that your students know that they are more important than the rules. Now, classroom management is important, but we're teaching kids, right? And the needs of those kids, they trump classroom management. So if you're a teacher like me, if you're one who prizes structure and organization, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, like I said, classroom management is important. You've got to have that to be a great teacher. But I would ask you to maybe keep this story in your mind and remember that, hey, we got to make sure that we balance that structure and that organization with compassion and approachability. And remember that students' needs trump all else. Thanks for watching.